In the heart of Europe, where vast forests once whispered with the voices of ancient tribes, the land that would one day be called Germany began its long, turbulent journey through time, power, and identity, a story that stretches from the misty age of myths to the shining skyline of modern Berlin, filled with triumphs and tragedies that shaped not just a nation, but the destiny of the entire world. For long before Germany was Germany, its people were known as the Germanic tribes, fierce, independent, and untamed, living in dense woodlands beyond the Roman frontier, resisting empire after empire, until their defiance became legend. For when Rome reached across the Rhine seeking conquest, it was met not with submission, but with the sword of Arminius, the Cheruscan warrior who, in the forests of Teutoburg in 9 AD, annihilated 3 Roman legions and secured for his people a freedom no emperor would ever fully conquer, a victory that planted the first seeds of German identity. Though no one then could have imagined that centuries later, these scattered tribes would forge one of history's most formidable powers. Yet after Rome's fall, chaos and opportunity ruled the continent, and from the ashes of empire rose the foundations of medieval Europe, where Christianity took root among the Germanic kingdoms, and the Holy Roman Empire emerged under Charlemagne, crowned emperor in the year 800, uniting vast lands from France to Germany under one divine rule. Though this empire would never truly be holy, nor Roman, nor entirely an empire, it was a tangled web of duchies, cities, and principalities, each jealous of its autonomy, each speaking its own dialect, each dreaming its own dream of greatness. And for centuries, Germany was less a country than a patchwork of powers. Yet within this chaos burned a spark, the spirit of art, learning, and invention that would later make Germany the center of European thought. As medieval cathedrals rose above rivers and universities began to question the old order, none more so than when a German monk named Martin Luther, hammer in hand, nailed his 95 Theses to the door of Wittenberg in 1517, igniting the Reformation that split Christendom in two, shattering the religious unity of Europe and setting off wars that drenched the land in blood, but also awakening ideas of conscience, freedom, and reform that would shape the modern world. And as the 30 Years' War raged from 1618 to 1648, turning the German lands into a theater of unimaginable destruction, famine and plague, it seemed that unity would never come, that this land was destined forever to be a battleground rather than a nation. Yet from these ruins rose resilience, the German people rebuilding village by village, castle by castle, and even as empires rose around them, France under Louis XIV, Britain ruling the seas, Germany waited, divided but not broken, dreaming of the day it would find its voice again. And in the north, one state began to rise above all others, Prussia, a kingdom of discipline, steel, and ambition, forged by the will of kings who believed that order and power could unite what faith and empire could not. Under Frederick William, the Great Elector, Prussia built an army feared across Europe, and under his descendants, especially Frederick the Great, it became a beacon of military brilliance and enlightened rule, where philosophy and force walked hand in hand. As Voltaire debated in the royal court while soldiers drilled in perfect rhythm, and through wars and treaties, victories and humiliations, the Prussian eagle spread its wings across the German lands, planting the idea that perhaps one day all Germans could stand under a single flag. But history, ever cruel and cunning, would not grant it easily, for the Napoleonic Wars would soon sweep across Europe, bringing both destruction and transformation, as Napoleon's legions crushed the Holy Roman Empire in 1806, ending 1,000 years of fragmented rule and leaving a political vacuum that demanded to be filled. And though Prussia was humbled at first, it would rise again, learning, adapting, waiting, until the moment came to reclaim its destiny. And when the fires of revolution spread through Europe in 1848, demanding liberty and nationhood, Germany too trembled with the cry of unification. Poets and patriots dreaming of a single Germany, but still it eluded them, for too many princes clung to their crowns. Too many powers feared a united Central Europe. Yet in the shadows, one man, Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor, was preparing to forge the impossible, not with speeches or votes, but with blood and iron, believing that only war could weld these divided lands into one. And so, through the cunning of diplomacy and the precision of strategy, he provoked 3 great conflicts against Denmark, Austria, and finally France, each victory tightening the threads of unity until in 1871, in the glittering Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, As France lay defeated, the German princes gathered around King Wilhelm III of Prussia and proclaimed him emperor of a new united Germany. And in that moment, the centuries of division ended, and the German Empire was born, strong, proud, and ambitious, a nation of poets and soldiers, of Beethoven and Bismarck, of industry and discipline, ready to take its place among the great powers of the world. Yet within its triumph lay the seeds of future storms, for rapid industrialization, nationalism, and imperial hunger would soon push it toward confrontation with the very world it had sought to join. And as the 20th century dawned, Germany stood tall but restless, brilliant yet burdened by its past, marching toward a destiny that would test the soul of humanity itself. And soon the ambitions of empire turned to unease, for as Kaiser Wilhelm II took the throne in 1888, the young monarch's restless energy and dreams of global dominance began to strain the balance of Europe. As Germany's factories roared and its fleets grew, challenging Britain's naval supremacy and France's pride, building not only machines but rivalries, for beneath the glittering surface of progress lay tension, nationalism, and fear. And when the spark of war was struck in Sarajevo in 1914, the great powers plunged into a darkness no one could have foreseen. The First World War, a cataclysm that would tear empires apart and stain Europe with blood on an industrial scale. Germany, confident and disciplined, entered the conflict with belief in victory, its soldiers marching through Belgium toward Paris under the shadow of destiny. But war in the modern age was no longer the noble contest of kings. It was a grinding, mechanical slaughter of trenches and gas, mud and steel, where millions perished for inches of ground. And as the years dragged on, hunger and exhaustion spread across the German home front, until the empire that had seemed unbreakable began to crack from within. And in 1918, facing defeat and revolution, Kaiser Wilhelm fled into exile, the monarchy collapsed, and from the ruins of war was born the fragile Weimar Republic, a democracy built upon despair, burdened by the Treaty of Versailles, which demanded impossible reparations, seized territories, and humiliation so deep it poisoned the national soul. Yet even in hardship, Germany's creativity blazed, its cities alive with art, cinema, and ideas, from the Bauhaus movement to the haunting melodies of composers and the brilliance of thinkers who sought to redefine a broken world. But democracy, fragile and young, faced enemies from every side, communists, monarchists, and above all, the rising voice of resentment that whispered through the streets, promising revenge and renewal, a voice embodied by a man who had once been a soldier in the trenches, a man whose bitterness and ambition would drag the world into darkness once more. Adolf Hitler, who through fiery words and ruthless manipulation turned the despair of millions into the machinery of dictatorship, and by 1933 the Nazi Party seized power, turning Germany into a totalitarian state built on propaganda, fear and fanatic nationalism, burning books, silencing dissent, and setting in motion one of history's most horrifying chapters, as Hitler's dreams of empire sought to rewrite Europe by blood and fire. And soon the swastika flew over conquered lands, Austria annexed, Czechoslovakia betrayed, Poland invaded, the world plunged again into war, and though at first the Nazi war machine seemed unstoppable, sweeping through Europe with terrifying speed, conquering France in weeks, bombing London, and marching deep into the Soviet Union, its victories were built on cruelty and madness, for behind the front lines, the Holocaust unfolded, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others deemed unworthy, a horror so vast it defied comprehension. And as the tide of war turned against Germany after Stalingrad and D-Day, its cities were reduced to ashes, its people starved and scattered. And when the Red Army stormed Berlin in 1945, Hitler's empire of 1,000 years ended after just 12, leaving behind a world in ruins, cities in rubble, and a people shattered, haunted by guilt and grief, their nation divided by walls both physical and moral. As the victors carved Germany into zones of occupation, East controlled by the Soviet Union, West by the Allies, and from this division rose two Germanys, the Federal Republic of Germany in the West, democratic and free, and the German Democratic Republic in the East, bound in the iron grip of communism, separated by the infamous Berlin Wall, a scar of concrete and barbed wire that split families, dreams, and destinies for nearly 3 decades. Yet even in division the German spirit endured, rebuilding what had been lost, turning ruins into opportunity. factories into symbols of resilience, and as the Cold War froze Europe in tension, West Germany became an economic miracle. The Wirtschaftswunder,